Okay. So good evening, everybody. Welcome to the District Advisory Building Committee for the Public Schools. It's June 25th, 2020, and we are meeting via Zoom. And I am Sarah Thompson, co-chair of the DABC, along with my co-chair, Mr. Justin Costa.
Evening.
So I want to welcome everybody back. We have a few people that we're missing, but hopefully we can jump right in. We have a tight time schedule tonight because of the BLACs that are going to follow after this. So if we want to take notes as we go along, and if there's something absolutely pressing, we can jump in and as we go. But I'm going to turn it over to Mark Lee from Harriman. And if we could use the raise your hand function. And Mark, while I'm here, I'm happy to call on them if that works for you. Okay.
Sarah, do you want to approve minutes first?
Oh, thank you. Yes, very much. Yep. Can we go to the, well, see, this is the problem. I don't, one screen here. Does everybody have the meeting minutes in front of them?
We didn't get them, did we?
They're in Board Docs.
Okay. So why don't we?
Approval of minutes.
Okay. Did anyone read the minutes so that you feel comfortable in approving the meeting minutes of the last meeting? I don't want to approve them just for the sake of approving them. Okay, you get a thumbs up from Emily Figdor. Anybody else read them? Okay, so let's table that for a moment, and maybe we can come back at the next meeting and approve those mini minutes, because it seems as though that more so than not didn't see those meeting minutes. So if you could take note of that, and if we have time this evening as we go along that you can look at them, that'd be great. But Mark, I'm going to turn it over to welcome and phasing scenarios discussion.
Great, thank you very, very much, Sarah. And we'll use the protocol. There's a hand raised, I'll sort of pause, and then Sarah can address the person asking the question. So we've got, again, as I said, three basic items that we want to cover with everyone. I'll go fairly quickly. If I'm going too quickly, just raise your hand and stop, and I'll stop. So we'll go through the Longfellow phasing. The challenge with both Longfellow and Reiki is that we don't have swing space that we're creating. And so the idea of renovating an occupied building, you have a couple options. One, you can sort of create swing space and move people out of an area and then renovate it and then shift things around, or you can do the work when the building is not occupied, and that means the summer. The challenge with doing renovation work for a school in a normal calendar year is that you have about 8 weeks to get work done in the summer. That's really, really difficult to get anything substantially done, and you'd end up with a construction schedule that would be many, many summers long to try to get the work done. And so the basic strategy that we have for both Longfellow and for Reiki is to create swing space by moving in portable classrooms. So we're suggesting that we bring in 3 portable classroom units, and those each have 2 portable classrooms in them. It's not unusual in school construction to do this. It means that there's an added layer of administrative oversight and thinking about how you have students move through to the portables that are remote from the building itself. So they're not physically connected to the building. So that's a consideration. We have been doing this at Lyseth with the portable that they did have, and that has worked out well to create some swing space. And so the proposal is to add 6 classrooms here. And as you all know, a lot of the work at Longfellow involves abatement of materials in the ceilings and floors. And there's some piping that has asbestos wrapping on it, but predominantly it's materials that are in the ceiling and floor. So the first summer, the intent is to remove it from the corridors, the common spaces. So in that 8-week period, we'll be removing the ceilings and the flooring in those areas. And then we move into the fall. So in the fall of 2021, the idea is that we have a section of the school that is comprised of 6 classrooms, and you can see them dashed in blue here on the screen, and that we will move those students into either the classroom or a cohort of students that go into the portable units that are outside of the building, freeing up an area of the school to renovate. And so we would, in those areas, do the full abatement and then install all new materials. And so we would do classroom by classroom so that when we're done, those 6 classrooms are completely renovated. And we've talked before that the work involves more than simply just abatement, that the classrooms will actually feel very new when they're all done. They'll have new ceilings, new lighting, new flooring, new instruction technology, and that involves both the front of the classroom as well as in the ceiling. And so, and we're looking at opportunities to enhance the HVAC system with better controls, and also looking for adjustments to the window mechanisms as they currently are without having to replace the windows. And so that first fall would be those 6 classrooms, and then we switch to the second half of the school year. After the break in the winter, we would switch. So then the folks that have been in the portable move back in, and then the people that are in the next area would move back out to the portables in time for the spring start. And so we call it spring, but that's essentially going from January through to June of that year. So that's the spring of 2022 on the first floor. And then in the summer, that's the second summer, we would do a lot of the extensive work at the entrance area, and we would install new finishes in the corridor. So as you'll recall, we removed the finishes in the first summer, but there's not enough time to remove and install new finishes in the corridors during that time frame. So the second summer is when we install all new finishes in the corridors themselves. And then we would also abate the ceilings and flooring in the second story. And so that's this area right here. And so that happens in the summer of 2022. And then during this subsequent school year, we move upstairs and we do the abatement and renovation of one side of the hallway. And then we switch to the other semester and we do the other side. And so then in the summer, we wrap it up by abating the flooring on the second floor corridors. We install the finishes in the second floor corridors, and you understand that we have to do that during the summers because we can't take the corridor offline during the school years. That's why the corridor installations occur during the summer. But then we also abate the piping down on the lower level of the building itself. And so that is the sort of cycle of renovations, and so it ends up being approximately 28 or so months, beginning in the spring of 2021 and extending to the end of summer 2023. The location of portables, that's a challenge right now. We've just identified that it's a very, very tight site. There's not a lot of room. And so we're looking at taking some portion of the parking lot and or the area above the basketball courts down below the slope by the parking in the back that services Deering. So there's a fairly level spot where the orange rectangle is shown right there. And so we're looking at those, and we'll do a further detailed study of that. So there will be an impact to potentially to the amount of parking spaces if we can't fit them all in the lower area, and we don't know that it's feasible that we can fit them all in the lower area at this time. Any questions on Longfellow before I move on to Presumpscot? Okay.
Can I ask a quick question about the phasing in the phase 2, when you do pod 2, if you're doing the classrooms on the first floor, so back one more. Yeah, so where it's there. So how do the kids that are over in the kindergarten wing, are they going to be able to move through all those classrooms that are being abated? The corridor will still be accessible, or? Right,
that's right, Jessica. The corridor will be. That's why we'll be doing the corridor work during the summers with the installation of new finishes in that time frame. So we'll do abatement.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. We'll be doing the abatement in the summer, and then we follow up the following summer with the installation of new finishes.
And that'll be safe for the kids to walk in between all of that happening?
Yes. Yep. Well, absolutely. We'll make sure that that's very contained and safe. We tried to build in, and it's not set in stone yet, but we tried to build in contiguous areas where the containment would occur. In some areas, you can see right here, for instance, we had one pod that moved over to the other side, but we'll look carefully at being able to minimize a number of containment areas.
Okay.
You all set, Jess? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, so Presumpscot is a little different story in that we do actually have already portables on site. And so we actually have the number we have 6 classrooms currently. We will need to relocate those portables because the addition goes on top of where they currently reside on the site. And so in some ways, this is the easiest of the schedules to accommodate. And so what's nice is that once we relocate those portables, we'll have full access to be able to build the addition. And that's sort of what Lyseth went through right now during that construction of the connector and the gymnasium and library. And so in similar fashion, this will go on during the school year, completing in the fall of 2021. And so we'll build the additions there, and then we'll be able to, and that time when we get to the following summer, we'll do the few interior renovation areas that are touched by the renovation scope. And so the construction schedule is much shorter. It's about 14 to 15 months at Presumpscot, again, because most of it is additions, and we're not doing extensive renovation to the interior of the building itself. So that one's shorter. We've looked at potential for the area to place the existing modular structures would be in the edge of the field, adjacent to the asphalt area. Any questions on Presumpscot?
I have another question. Sorry.
That's okay.
At one point, we were told that those portables weren't in good enough condition to move. Have you looked at the portables? Are you sure that we're able to move them?
That's an excellent question. We will look at that carefully. That did come up with as well. There was very much a concern that the condition of the undercarriage was not going to make it for a move. We were able to reevaluate that, and with the help of the modular company, Scavi, came down and actually helped us look at it and determined that we could move them. And similarly, we'll look at these to ensure that we can move them. So
okay, great. That's good news. Thank you.
So Reiki, in similar fashion to Longfellow, involves a significant amount of work in the building without a lot of swing space. And so in other school projects, we've actually looked at converting a gymnasium to swing space to accommodate temporary classrooms. We don't think that's feasible here with the amount of use that the gymnasium gets. And so the idea is to use a similar strategy where we have 3 portable units on site for a total of 6 classrooms. Again, one of the challenges here we looked at early on was could we accommodate the construction during the summer months, and it was just too much to accommodate all of the construction work. In all of these, we reached out to a construction specialist that looks at some of the issues and the amount of work we can do and how you would sequence work, and their opinion was that there's absolutely just no way that you could accommodate that. And the other concern we had is that we didn't want to have a issue where getting to the end of the summer and work isn't done, and then suddenly what do we do at that point? And we have to come up with a contingency plan. So the idea was again to think about it in the same sequencing that we did with Longfellow, where we have a summer intensive period, and then we break up into a series of areas for fall, spring, fall, spring. So the summer of the first year, we would build the second floor non-classroom space walls and systems. And so we're showing here the second story, and there's not a large amount of work in this area, and so we can install those walls, and we think there's enough time to get that amount of work done during that summer of 2021. Bathrooms get a renovation, so there's a little bit of work there. And we do have to move the health offices over to the current music location and then locate art and music into the space where the health offices currently are. And then we break it up. So then we go to the first floor, and the area that shown dashed moves out to the portables, and we build the permanent classrooms on the first floor along that edge of the building. And then the following semester, we build along where the dashed line in green is shown. Then during the summer, and even the additions can start prior to the summer in the front. So the addition really is the conference room that you see in the entrance area. It's an admin area in the front of the building along Brackett Street. So that dashed area occurs in the second summer, and so we do build the first floor non-classroom spaces and the administration area as well. So at that point, the first floor is done, and then we moved to the second floor to build the classrooms along the area dashed in blue for the first fall semester, and then we shift to the spring semester for the classrooms along that edge right there. And so we're also, again, thinking about containing the construction areas so that that is separated from student use while the school is going on. So and so that is again another construction schedule that's approximately the 26 months or so to construct that. So the areas, again, just like Longfellow, the site is extremely tight. There's not a lot of room in and around, and so we're looking at the two potential locations to be able to place the portables would be in an open area adjacent to the play area right now. It is used for recreation, so there would be an impact, and that wouldn't be available during that time frame, as well as potentially an area of the parking lot. We looked at the area of the athletic field. The concern was that it's a little bit more remote from the existing classroom areas, and so we were somewhat concerned about placing it there. And also, we weren't sure, again, the impact to use through 26 months of taking the field offline. Any questions on the Reiki phasing?
Yeah, we don't use the raise your hand function, but Matt, go ahead. Then go to
what's the raise your hand function?
at the bottom of the screen.
Oh, okay. I just thought you meant raise your actually function of raising your hand.
Okay.
So Mark, I've got two questions. One, and I think they relate mostly to all three schools. The first question is dealing with noise during the day, construction and renovations. How are you thinking of addressing that through the phasing while students are in session, especially Reiki, given all the concerns they have with noise? And then the second question is, as it relates to the portables, are those going to require full foundations, or are you going to be able to negotiate that down to the foundation solution they had at Lyseth with sonotubes, or can you avoid it altogether, maybe?
Yeah, so I'll take those in order. And so what we're proposing for Reiki, because of the fact that there's a much more significant amount of work to construct the walls and the amount of noises, to actually shift the work schedule so that the work schedule would actually start in the afternoon and extend into the evening there. And so because we are concerned about the impact that noise would have in the learning environment, particularly at Reiki, if you imagine that it's all a very open concept, and so it doesn't take much for that noise to travel across the entire school. For Longfellow, we'll evaluate. It's a little easier, that there's much less extensive renovation in the rooms themselves. So it's something that we think can be accommodated without worrying about the noise impact. But we may look at the same solution where we suggest that the contractor will shift their schedule to the afternoon so it doesn't coincide with the students. with respect to the portable foundations, yeah, the city's approved. I guess it's a temporary use, and it's a negotiation with them regarding it has to be fully engineered foundation system, and so but they were comfortable with the solution that we developed for the for LISF. It can't be the fact that it resides on the site for an extended period of time means that we can't use a temporary condition to it. We actually have to engineer a foundation system. So we can use, though, a pier system like we used at LISF.
Are you all set, Matt? Okay. Thank you. Going to Emily Figdor.
Thank you. This is very exciting. I have 3 questions. One is we didn't include money for portables in the budget. So I'm wondering about the budget implications of adding the portables. I'll go through my questions and then maybe you can answer them. The second is the Reiki, the location of the Reiki, potential location of the Reiki portables. It looks like the one near the basketball court is in the staff parking area, and parking is a huge challenge already for staff. So I'm just wondering if you've evaluated that and if there are any potential solutions there. And then lastly, I'm wondering if, I heard you talk about the Reiki and potentially at Longfellow having a later work schedule that starts in the afternoon. And I'm wondering, are there cost implications of that later work schedule? Maybe a random question. I'm just ignorant about it.
They're all excellent questions. And so the first one is that we have a design contingency right now still in the budget. And so we're evaluating what the costs are for the portables. Right now our feeling is that we have enough to be able to absorb the impact of the portable costs, the rental costs for those with that cushion that we have right now in the budget. The second question was about the parking, that it definitely would be an impact to staff parking if we need to place a portable structure there. Or again, we're going to evaluate how many we feel. It's more cost effective to be able to actually get them in the same location. So to the extent we could actually put all 3 in the area by the playground, that would be our preference, because the electrical service is not split in multiple locations doing that as well. And it's a little easier to have students going in one location as opposed to split across the site. So, but we're keenly aware that will impact potentially parking. We know that area of most areas of the peninsula are challenged when it comes to parking, but certainly that area. And so our preference is to look at seeing if we can squeeze them all together over on the place side. And then the third question you had was relative to the cost associated with shifting the schedule. And that's something that I'm not sure yet an answer for that, Emily. So we're going to dig into that a little bit further.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
So just quickly, floor plan updates. What we've done right now is gone through the biggest update to the floor plan here is that we have evaluated all the programs that currently are there that you have and labeled all the rooms. And so the basement currently has the ELL and G&T reading and art. And so that right now is intended that those will stay in those locations. Upstairs, we've now identified, I think there was a number of rooms that said office next to them, and they were small rooms to accommodate different special services. And so we have social worker, speech, OTPT, and then we have math intervention, the resource rooms. So Lisa has carefully gone through and evaluated the program for that you currently have with the proposed renovations and the rooms there. And I think, Lisa's still, well, if Lisa's still here, she is, I see her right there. I think there are still a few, Lisa, that we still need to to accommodate that aren't shown here. So we don't have a pre-kindergarten room shown. And so at least I'll turn it over to you right now.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah. So I went through the floor plans pretty thoroughly with the staff list and existing plans and all the notes we've taken to date. And we, with the elimination of an addition, we do not have a pre-K classroom. Other things that right now, again, without adding additional space, it's hard to make room for some of these other instructors or ed techs that have kind of shared rooms or touched down in different places. So that would be right now the band teacher and the string teacher kind of touch down in sped rooms or library and gym. There's a couple ed techs that reside in what is labeled storage right now. And then there is a timeout room that is not accommodated at this moment. These are all things that we continue to massage the plan to try to create space for. We have some ideas for the timeout space where we can accommodate that in this next iteration of plan modifications. We're trying to find areas to create space for them, but it is challenging without adding space onto the building to create additional spaces. So the other thing that's not in the base bit of this project right now is the pull-out spaces. I can see they're on the floor plan right here. There should be labeled as an add alternate. I don't know if Mark can kind of circle those, but those are the idea of what was added in at Lyseth as the classroom nodes. And it's really being intentional about these pull-out or breakout spaces. Right now, the hallways are lined with desks and chairs where you pull kids out to work with them one-on-one, which is wonderful, but it's better when we can be intentional about it, maybe have a little bit of acoustical separation, and the other thing that is lacking is some storage with the tables in the hallway. So some trade-offs without having the addition, and we can continue to evaluate those as we fine-tune the plan.
Excellent. And so the third level, the second floor, shows the extended corridor through a current classroom right now to the elevator and the toilet rooms and resource room on that corner of the floor. And then this was a slide that we put in with the feedback that we got from the community forum and from DABC and BLAC meetings and responses. This is items that are now posted on the website, which is our third bullet point. I don't want to go through all this right now because I know we have a limited time. So I'm going to continue to move through the other items, not to suggest we don't want to take these up, but I think right now, in the essence of time, we'll move to the Presumpscot floor plan. And so the Presumpscot floor plan is taking shape now. What we did with this, it did the same exercise. Lisa was very careful in going through to evaluate programs and making sure those programs had spaces. We also are showing, you can see in a light dashed line at the top of the plan, that shows the outline of what the, and I don't know if does my cursor show up? Yeah, okay. So that right there, if we were to take this box right here, that is the size of the Lyseth gymnasium that we did, which is again a modified elementary school size gym, and then the stage piece right here. And so that identified the additional square footage. I know there's been a lot of conversation about the cafeteria feeling like it was large enough potentially. Could that be the gym and the existing gym and cafetorium stay at the cafeteria? And so right now, again, there's not funds to appropriate for that. After our next estimate, we'll take and see if there's any chance that could expand to encompass square footage of that size. But right now, it's a little over 3,000 square feet of space. So So just a blow up of the two areas. This is the rear area where we have the art room, the music room. We have a storage and kiln between them. And then we have the kindergarten wing with 3 kindergarten rooms and a pre-K. And you'll see the toilet rooms in those areas. We also have the speech and lit coach in that area. And then we have math instruction and Title I off to the right-hand side of this as well. We have just a small little breakout area called the Nest next to the lobby to the cafeteria, currently identified as the cafeteria, and then a warming kitchen directly off of the cafeteria. And so that really is the majority of the spaces in the rear of the building. And then moving to the front, we have the addition. So the addition itself, I'll use my cursor again, is the existing building. Essentially, this becomes the addition right here. So this is new square footage right here, and then this is converted square footage in this area right there. And so so what we end up with is the security vestibule, the receptionist. We have a workroom over on this side, so staff can access the workroom centrally off of the lobby right here. We have 2 individual user toilet rooms, the principal, conference, and then the nurse suite right here. Across from the nurse suite, we have guidance. We also have the admin record storage, and we have OTPT and a social work and storage room off of the existing corridor outside of the gym and cafetorium right now. And so we've created a seating area in the lobby right now. So it's a smaller addition than what the admin entrance addition at LICEP looks like. But it's in a similar way, we're creating the admin right adjacent to the vestibule, the security vestibule at the front of the building. I'll move to Reiki. So Reiki, right now, we haven't gone and vetted all the spaces as significantly as we have with Longfellow and Presumpscot. So we're in the process of doing that right now. We do know that we're short 1 room from their existing count. And again, Lisa, I believe that is something we have looked into to this point. So,
yeah, I would say I'm about 75% through the detailed analysis. When we say we're short 1 space, it's a classroom right now that isn't labeled correctly. I think we're heavy in another space type, but I don't want to say one way or the other until I finish that analysis. So we're at the point where we go through things with a fine-tooth comb and literally use every instructor, every type of program, and make sure everyone's accounted for. And so I hope to have an update on that very shortly.
Very good. And I think the last time there was discussion on are the rooms all the same size. They're all the same square footage with the exception that the kindergarten and pre-K are larger by necessity. They're 1,000 square feet versus the other classroom spaces.
Mark, I think Emily has a question.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead, Emily.
I don't know if this is helpful at all, but just noting that in the documents that were circulated for the BLAC, which I looked at in it, there's a room for our world languages program, which unfortunately we just cut this year. So we won't, we'll have a different need next year.
Thank you, Emily. And these will be vetted many times more before we actually go to construction. So the second story again is similarly laid out to what we had before with art and music. And I know there was a question about the last meeting was art, the size, or was it equal to the current size? And we did a takeoff of that, and Lisa has the results of that takeoff.
Yeah, I think we have an additional 12 square feet in the new space. So not even really worth mentioning, but the reason it looks so different is because we have a separate storage room and a separate kiln room. And so looking at all 3 of those spaces, including the art space itself, is equivalent to the space that we have now.
And so, without further ado, the new FF website is the address is right there, so all of you can.
Can we just pause for a second?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry.
I want to have time to cover this, but Jessica, has some things she
I'm
wanted to
sorry.
say about Longfellow.
Yeah.
We go
Sure.
quickly and then
Please.
go. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, so I should have jumped in after you reviewed the Longfellow floor plan, because I brought up at the last meeting the concerns that at our February meeting, we approved a plan that did have the addition for pre-K art and music. And then by the time we got to our next meeting in May, the plan had been revised and we no longer have an addition at Longfellow. I have kind of looked through everything that I have, and it doesn't look like the cost of abating and renovating the classrooms has changed. So what changed to take away all that extra classroom space, and why? Because that, I mean, to me, that's a huge fundamental change in the program. And I never in February would have voted to move forward on a classroom plan that didn't include that. I can't, feel good about a project that leaves one school without any additional space and leaves our most vulnerable students going to the basement for their special education, and leaves, and we're talking about abatement because we're concerned about exposure for the kids to asbestos, but we're keeping them in a poorly circulated basement space, spending a lot of the time down there. So I just feel like I need a better answer to how we got from one place to another before we move forward with doing the designs and going out to build.
Sure. I think there's a couple of, there's kind of two parts to this that I'll suggest. One, I think there was a meeting that actually I did attend, and so I'll again draw on the memory of my colleague Lisa, that essentially we were struggling with, we couldn't afford that addition that we were showing, the internal work in the building itself, and so there was no way that we could do the abatement and renovation of the classrooms and do the additions, and so that led to, I think, a further conversation about what the staff's preferences were, and so Lisa, I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. So that meeting back in February, there was a couple, I guess we'll call them schemes that we were looking at. One was classroom, one was cafeteria, one was gymnasium, and the Longfellow, when we got to kind of boiling it down, we kind of selected that in the manner of the classroom option, I think is what we had moved forward with. There's two options in Longfellow. One was A and one was B. And I may not have A or B correct, but one of them was looking at really focusing on abatement of abating the materials and getting replacement of those materials, as well as the elevator, some ADA improvements, some code upgrades, and the secure entrance. And the other one focused more on this idea of adding new spaces. And in that meeting, kind of distilling the scope down, because we decided in the classroom, the recommendation was in the manner of the classroom option, but with a request to go back to the principals and the staff to really look at what were the unique needs at each of the schools, because at that meeting we had, there was a determination made to not necessarily have a same equity lens for all three, but more focus on the unique needs of each school. And so those two schemes were taken back to the principal, back to the Portland Public School facilities, and us sat with Terry and Steve and ourselves and reviewed what the options were. Terry then went to his staff and asked different questions, and really we kind of walked them through each of them, and the recommendation came forward to move forward with this plan, focusing on this existing spaces themselves. So that's the evolution of how we got here. Yes, there's several steps from when that meeting happened to this plan that you see here.
And I'm concerned that that's not everything that happened, because I've talked to staff and they did not feel that we met at the end of February, school ended mid-March. As far as in-person school, and from my understanding, the staff did not have an opportunity to give that feedback. So my sense is that that decision was made based on the principal and the facilities meeting. And so I guess my concern is that, we've been going through this process for as a public process as a committee for so many years, that the decision was made, privately by just a couple of stakeholders, and not by the staff and not with any community input. And I think it's a big change. I think it's a big decision and a big loss to the entire plan for Longfellow.
Yeah, I unfortunately wasn't involved in the meetings that happened at that point, so I can't say if it did or didn't happen.
Steve, can you speak to that, please?
Yes, the meetings that I had with Doug and Terry, Lisa and Mark, it was always my understanding, and we actually had the period of days of just holding the project before anything was moved, to have Terry reach out to his staff, his teachers, for inputs, and he had even sent me emails of the response sheets and spreadsheets that he was garnering from the teachers. It wasn't a facilities call on how the decision was made. It was made from what we got back from them.
And those were all new feedback forms that were gathered in those first 2 weeks of March. Those were not the older feedback forms.
I don't think we're talking about the same form. Talking about what Terry actually did with his own spreadsheets as he canvassed his staff for input on the option A or option B for where we had the design process for additions as opposed to more renovation inside.
Okay.
So it wasn't my decision or my choice. Quite frankly, I would have gone for the additions, but it was totally a different direction for where you're seeing now was from feedback from the Longfellow community.
So I would just, and I don't want to get into a back and forth about what Terry did or didn't do, because I trust that Terry did what he was able to do in those 2 weeks. I'm just concerned that a decision was made outside of the public process, and that even if that was the staff recommendation, that we should have reconvened and looked at that recommendation before moving forward with a plan that was different than the one we voted on in February. And I mean that, I may be totally off base about that process. I'm just here to say that I think a decision was made outside of the public process.
Can I just, because I was not at the meeting on February 27th, and so I'm looking at the minutes from that meeting, and the recommendation to the board from the DABC was to move forward with the, and it says in quotation marks, in the spirit of the classroom scenario. That was the recommendation from the DABC. So just to be clear, there was no, there was no detail. It wasn't like, they voted for, or that you voted for the, of the different options, which included, I think, the new classrooms and the, which is the one that you decided on. And then what were the other ones? One was the gym, additional space. I don't remember. I'm blanking. I just read it as I was going through the notes.
The cafeteria, I think.
One was the cafeteria with warming kitchen, was the third one. But so I guess what I'm saying is, if we voted for in the spirit of the classroom, the classroom model did contain an addition.
I don't think that's factual, but I could be wrong. I wasn't at the meeting.
Well, in the slides, it outlines what is under each thing, and the classroom plan had $3 million for a classroom addition for pre-K art and music, $8 million for abatement and renovation of classrooms, $2 million for an entry, $500,000 for an elevator, and $2 million miscellaneous. So that's what we voted to move forward. So my understanding was it was a fairly specific plan that we were moving forward on.
Yes, I remember too, and correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, or I don't remember who else was there that time, but what we also asked Harriman to do was to go back and work with the principals and staff. So we said in the spirit of, because I don't think anybody at that time was comfortable in giving an exact direction, because what was up on the screen at that time, the principals had some concerns. And so I think what we asked them to do is Harriman to go back and work with the staff and principal to see out of what was there, what were their priorities. And then Harriman was to go back and put that together. So that was my recollection of that. So I see Matt has his hand up too. Do you want to wait a sec, Jess, or do you?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay.
I think also,
Well, okay.
this is not A or B, this is Plan C
Mm-hmm.
of the iteration of work with Longfellow. It's not totally A, it's not totally B, it's a hybrid of A and B that was delivered back to the recommendations to Harriman.
Okay. Jesse, can I go to Matt, or you want to continue?
No, go to Matt, that's fine. Yeah.
Sure.
Mhm.
I want you to feel comfortable with what comfortable relative.
I've said as much as I can say. So go ahead to Matt. That's fine.
Okay, Matt.
Yeah. So at that February meeting, the one of the reasons we arrived at in the spirit of conclusion was there were differing goals and objectives based on the Presumpscot principle primarily, and Terry, the Longfellow principle, where we couldn't make a blanket recommendation that sort of covered both those sort of disparate sort of perceived needs for the school. So we arrived in the spirit of, because it was in essence to sort of go back and work with those individual schools to further drill down on those priorities, meaning that Presumpscot, the expanded addition space was seen as a more pressing need than the classroom space that was seen as the more pressing need at Longfellow. I agree that I don't recall being informed that the preferred classroom preservation scheme for Longfellow was going to include elimination of the addition and henceforth the program space, which Lisa has identified they're having trouble figuring out where to get some of that program space, because you need more space to fit the program space that's lacking. So I think that's, and Steve's right, we're obviously on scheme 3 with Longfellow because of what come out of that February meeting, but I don't know that unfortunately in the intervening months we ever got a chance to weigh in on that in any practical reality until now.
I think a couple responses. I think we can look kind of back through the minutes to understand, I guess, to Jessica and Matt's point, when the sort of decision settled on this scheme. The other important thing, I said there was sort of two-part answer. One, the second part of the answer is that as we've gone back and evaluated the cost with our cost estimate a little bit more, we believe there is some additional funds to capture some spaces with a small addition onto not off of the side of the building that we were looking at, but over off of the left-hand side of the building. And so we're looking hard if whether we can get back in the necessary square footage to accommodate the program spaces that currently aren't accounted for.
Matt, did you have anything further? No.
Sarah, I think you're muted.
Thank you. It's about 7 minutes before I said 4 o'clock, so it was a good thing I was muted, because it's a few minutes before 6 o'clock. Does anyone
Mark,
have, quickly, I want to be able to go to Emily's presentation of the, real quick, of the website. She's put a lot of work into that, and it's going to be a great tool. So can we quickly go over to there and get
Mark,
a,
Mark Goffin had his hand up.
I'm sorry?
Mark Goffin?
Mark has his hand up.
I have a question, Sarah.
Go ahead, Mark, sorry.
Yeah, I know we're short on time, so you don't have to answer, but perhaps at the next meeting, you can answer, okay, in addressing the Longfellow Classroom Edition for art, music, pre-K, it seemed we allocated $3 million for that. If it's not in what's being presented today, where's that $3 million going? That would be my question. Maybe another way to look at it. And you don't have to answer now, but perhaps in the next meeting or sometime before then.
I think we have, can we answer that? Because there is a redistribution of the dollars from that original proposal. So can somebody, and I don't know what it is, I suspect that it's the Presumpscot, but can somebody try to answer that?
Yeah, I'm not, I got to go back and look at the numbers before I speak on those, but we can definitely bring back the respective budgets and where the accounting of the funds is right now.
Steve, do you know?
I would want to review it with Mark, but there was movement, and I can't give you the exact movement on it right now. So.
Okay. That'd be good, I guess, put that as a priority to get back out to the DABC if we could, whether we're not going to meet again Zoom wise, but if we could have it through email, and then any questions anyone has or comments to send to Justin and I and Steve Stilfen, that would be great.
Yeah, can I just say that whatever ABC plan hybrid was, it was all based on the budget with which we have a huge amount of abatement in the school. So working with Terry and talking about those issues of balancing addition to abatement, from how can we not abate, where do we abate, what's abatable. The feedback coming through Terry to us was that they would want to have it abated in the spaces they have, pretty much than making additions. So that's where that hybrid comes, but it's all hinging around the core expense of that school, and renovation is the cost to abate.
So let's go to the website and get a quick intro to that. I don't know if it's the same link that people are going to click on for the other meeting, but.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure either for the following one. So this is the actual live website. This is I'm on the internet right now, and it's ppsbfofprojects.com, and so this is the homepage, and so there's a navigation bar at the top. There's the About BFOF here, and then there are content areas for meetings and project schedules, meeting materials, project update sheets, and floor plans and photos. And so, and those are all identified at the top. And there's also an FAQ section, so frequently asked questions. And so those are listed here as well. So, and they're broken out as general FAQs as well as by school. And so there's a question and the response to those frequently asked questions identified there. I'll go back to, there's the floor plans for each of the 4 projects and photos as well. And so those are all there, and there are the project update sheets that we put out on a regular basis. Those are also identified here. And then meeting materials. So the PowerPoints, the meeting minutes, and the agendas are all here. And the at the very first tab is the upcoming meetings. And so it's a schedule of all of the scheduled meetings and then the total project schedule as well. And then there are the list of the members for each. And so there will be a link to this website on the district webpage. So if you don't remember, ppsbfofprojects.com, you can also access it from the district's webpage. And we're hopeful that this becomes kind of the one go-to place to easily find all the information. And so it should cut down on a lot of the challenge of finding it. It'll also is something that we can post immediately too, so we can get the latest and greatest to everyone so that they have one place to be able to capture everything. And so, again, a big thank you to Emily Wall, who put all this together and got everything on there.
Mark, I have a couple quick questions. So, and maybe one of them is for Javier as well, is one, I think it's really important. I think what we've heard in the BLAC meetings as well as here, the communication out to the community as well. So this would be a perfect, I mean, it's set up beautifully, Emily, so you've done an awesome job. So I'm wondering, one, the rollout plan to the community, if we can't get some sort of press release to let people know that we've created this and where to find it, because it's only going to increase, I think, the involvement of the community. And people are feeling what Jess and Matt and others have alluded to is not only as members of the committee, but the community members are feeling a little lost. And so I think it'd be a great opportunity if we could, once this is up in production and ready to go, to spread the word far and wide through the PTOs and everywhere else we can. Is that doable?
It is. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And it is live right now.
Sweet. Okay. And any approval, Mark, for things to go on that, is that something you work through Portland Public Schools staff before it goes up?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Great. Any last questions, anybody, before we fold?
Just to say kudos on the website.
Oh, hi, Emily. Sorry.
I just wanted just to pipe in and say thank you so much for this website. It seems incredibly valuable.
And I also want to echo that. I do think that it will be a huge improvement, but I also want to point out that in the packet for today, you also have a communication protocol and timeline that is what we worked through between staff and our Harriman team to ensure that we, like today's meeting is, scheduled the way that it is because we had to cancel last week's meeting because we didn't post in time. And so I think we've worked through that. Also a way to get the chairs more engaged in the agenda setting. So I think that we are making progress on that front. And I also want to thank the whole Harriman team and Steve and Doug for their work to get us there. So.
Great. And the slide that you put out last night for the BLAC co-chairs, Mark, can you email that as well? If we didn't, I didn't see it in the packet. Maybe it is there and I missed it. That one slide about process-wise of how we're going to do the meetings.
Yeah, it's
that's the one that.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't see it. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. Any other parting thoughts?
Thank you all.
Justin Costa.
Yeah, I do just want to say thanks for the website. And I realize that at some point this evening, I did get a text from Melinda that she was dealing with a minor family emergency. So she wanted me to pass that on. She's sorry she couldn't be here.
Great. Thank you, Justin. Appreciate it. Anything else, anyone? All right. Well, thank you all again very much for being on the call. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send them to Steve, Justin, and myself, and we'll be happy to communicate them back. And we'll be back in touch for the next meeting. And for those of you that want to join on the BLACs, those are going to be starting in the next minute or two. So good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.